Hi, everyone. My name is Monica Owens, and I'm the political organizer at the AAUP. I'm joined today by Judy Kohlberg, the president of the Eastern Michigan University AAUP chapter. Today, we're talking about privatization in online higher ed and how the EMU chapter has been organizing to exercise oversight of online offerings in the Academic Partnerships EMU contract, and also how that contract relates to the privatization of other services on campus, including parking and food service. So before we get started, I just wanted to offer a little background about sort of what we're doing here today and how it fits into a larger context of organizing at the AAUP. We have been focusing a lot on privatization recently because privatization of online education is on the rise. We're seeing for-profit online education corporations like Academic Partnerships, Kaplan, Wiley, Pearson, Blackboard, and others contract with public and private nonprofit institutions to provide digital platforms for online educational content, to recruit students, to manage enrollment, to facilitate the development of course materials, and lots more. So the thing is that while the use of digital platforms and online teaching tools can enrich education, sometimes institutions contracting with for-profit external companies can present problems to academic freedom and shared governance. And so to help chapters mitigate some of these problems, that last month, the AAUP launched the National Education Not Privatization Toolkit, containing resources for action. Our goal is to help as many AAUP chapters as possible get involved in the development and oversight of online education. And so a great way to take action is by passing a resolution or proposing a letter of agreement with your institution. By taking action, faculty can ensure that academic freedom and educational quality in online offerings meet the highest standards. And chapters can find out more about the toolkit, and you can access model resolutions and model language for letters of agreement by going to onefacultyoneresistance.org/privatization. So I really encourage chapters to check that out and start thinking about actions that they might want to take to help shape online education on campus. And with that, I'm going to jump right into our Q&A with Judy Kohlberg, president of the EMU AAUP chapter, so she can tell us a little bit more about the organizing efforts on their campus. Hi, Julie. Judy.
Hi, Monica.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
So first, I wanted you to sort of give us a little background. So can you say a little bit about privatization in general at EMU? What's being privatized, and what are the consequences to faculty, students, staff, and really the institution as a whole?
Sure, I'm happy to talk about that. Just about everything's being privatized at EMU. It began with the food service in 2016. The university signed a contract with a multinational corporation, Chartwells, to take over the food operations on campus. In late 2016, the administration signed a contract with Academic Partnerships to deliver completely online degrees. Parts of the benefits office, the functions of the benefits office have been privatized. Parking was privatized earlier this year. The university entered into a 35-year contract with a private equity firm called Preston Hollow Capital. It's located in Texas. And then they have subcontracted with another company called LAZ Parking. So there have been a lot of contracts with private firms, and then multiple smaller contracts with companies that are now performing functions that used to be carried out by employees. Right now, we're hearing rumors that housing is soon to be privatized. So at this point, we believe that Eastern Michigan is the most privatized public university in the state of Michigan. The university administration has justified privatization on the grounds of budgetary necessity. So after more than a decade of pretty consistent cuts to our budget from the state, the university claims that simply doesn't have the resources available to continue to operate these different functions. And that by privatizing, costs can be reduced. And they've also argued that the quality of services can be improved. 3 of the privatizations brought in revenue that the university claimed was needed to improve its financial position. So those seem to be pretty good arguments, but we're not really seeing the cost savings. So there was a study done by Bridge, which is a think tank here in Michigan, over the summer that showed that the cost of attendance for students has actually risen since the privatizations began. We've also experienced a reduction in the size of staff. So part of the goal of the university in these privatization agreements has been to reduce employment costs. And they've been pretty explicit about this, that they're trying to right-size the staff so they can shrink the size of the staff, the number of people employed at the university by entering into private agreements. In terms of kind of from a union perspective, privatization has led to shrinking of several collective bargaining units on campus. And we think that this is intentional and perhaps part of the motivation for privatization. And thinking about some of the other significance of privatization for the university, I believe we're seeing a decline in institutional coherence, so and a kind of shift away from the focus of the mission of the institution. So the mission of the institution is to provide the highest quality of education possible to our students. When these private companies begin to operate on campus, we see a real focus on the need to make a profit and a kind of shift away from a focus on the quality of education. Another effect of all these privatizations is that the morale of employees has been undermined, and that includes the faculty. The institution has made little to no attempt to discuss any of these contracts with the university community, with employees, with students, and there have been layoffs and a general decline in the size of the staff at the university. So people are feeling pretty embattled right now because of all of this, and we were just really wondering where the institution is going.
Right, and it sounds like that's a perfect segue into a discussion about the academic partnerships contract and how sort of what's at stake for students and faculty in this contract. And you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So EMU AAUP is the collective bargaining association of tenured and tenure track faculty. And we're really concerned about the contract with academic partnerships. The university announced this contract in late December of 2016. It's a 5-year contract. The contract contains reference to 11 completely online degree programs that did not exist. Most of them did not exist when this contract was signed. There had been no attempt to seek input from the faculty before the agreement was entered into. So when we found out about the agreement, and again, this was due to a university press release, so there was no direct communication with the faculty about it. We all heard it right after the end of fall term in 2016 as we were going off for the holidays, and everyone was pretty stunned about it. So we found out really quickly about AP. So Academic Partnerships is a private firm, primarily owned by a single individual, a guy named Randy Best. The company is located in Dallas, Texas. We learned that it has as its long-term goal the kind of complete transformation of public higher education in the United States. So the goal of Academic Partnerships is to kind of this kind of creative disruption of public higher education. The argument that the current model of public higher education in the United States is it's too expensive. It can be made a lot cheaper. Public higher education can be more accessible. So the way, of course, to do all this is to put courses online and entire degree programs online. So AP has a model, carousel model, where academic terms are relatively short and students can kind of jump in and out of programs of study really at any point during the year. The firm, to reduce costs and to make greater profit, it uses coaches. It works with a firm called Instructional Connections. It's a subcontractor that employs coaches who actually have the responsibility of interacting with students, evaluating their work, et cetera. So what AAUP allows for is for a single professor to be teaching many, many students, many, many sections through the use of these coaches. So it's kind of the model that research universities have used for years, where there's one professor and multiple sections. And that's essentially what AP does. So the possible negative effects of this, of course, include, first of all, loss of control by the faculty over the curriculum. We were very concerned about that. We're still concerned about that. The potential for reduction in the quality of the courses offered and the overall quality of the curriculum. And over the long run, a possible reduction in the size of the faculty. So we remain concerned about the contract with academic partnerships.
So what is the EMU AAUP chapter doing to take action?
Well, we've done a lot in the last year and a half. I was elected president of our chapter in November of 2016, and then we learned about the contract with AP in very late 2016, so right before I and my colleagues came into office in January of 2017. So the first thing we did is we asked for the contract with AP because we didn't have a copy of it. They gave us that. We read it. We saw a lot of things in that contract that were very worrisome. With the advice of our attorney, we used the legal rights that we have under Michigan labor law. We submitted a demand to negotiate, to bargain, because we believed that there were elements of the contract that would affect the conditions of our work. The university declined to negotiate the AP agreement with us. And so eventually, by the early summer of 2017, we filed an unfair labor practice that's still pending with the state of Michigan, with the Labor Relations Commission. At the same time that was going on, faculty from across the university in departments that were directly affected by AP, faculty who saw that there were programs in this contract that they didn't know anything about and hadn't been asked anything about, as well as faculty input bodies that thought that they should have been involved in discussions about AP, that they had a contractual right to give input on it, also submitted grievances. So we filed 5 separate grievances with the university from such bodies as the Faculty Senate, the College Council of the Arts and Sciences, or the Council of the College of Arts and Sciences School of Nursing, the College of Business Faculty, the faculty in the Department of Sociology, Anthropology, and Criminology. So that whole grievance process got going, and that gave us an opportunity to engage in conversations with the administration about what was this contract all about, how would it work, et cetera. And that was an important way to really explore what the administration's intentions were with the contract. And those grievances were not resolved through the grievance process within the university. So then they went to arbitration. There was an arbitration hearing at which the arbitrator said that although that the university needed to respect the terms of our contract and that AP could not operate in certain areas of our work, of the faculty work. And so the arbitrator, although he said that the university had a right to enter into the contract with AP, also insisted that in the implementation, AP would need to stay within very precise boundaries. So although the university claimed it as a win, we also thought that we won. So it depends on which side you were on in that whole process. So at the same time that we were going through the grievance process and the arbitration hearing, we launched a campaign to inform our students and the community about academic partnerships. We did this in the fall of 2017. We developed materials that we distributed on campus. We had posters that we posted all over campus. We put a full-page ad in the student newspaper about academic partnerships so that the students would be aware of this contract. We had tabling on campus where we engaged in conversations with people about it. We created an online petition that hundreds of people signed. I think, in fact, maybe almost a couple thousand people signed to get the word out across Michigan about what was happening here. We issued a press release about it. We got media attention. I was interviewed by multiple media outlets, journalists, and that also helped us to draw attention to what was going on at the university. So as a result of all of this, and all of these actions, I think, put a lot of pressure on the administration, and we are in the process of negotiating a letter of agreement on AP that would really constrain how AP operates at Eastern Michigan University so that it doesn't violate the rights of the faculty and doesn't really infringe on the contract or reduce the quality of the education that will be offered through online programs.
Wow, that's a lot. And
it was a lot.
And it's a challenging process.
Going on, there's still a lot of concern about AP, but it began a kind of larger conversation about how does an institution that is trying to adapt to a pretty constrained budgetary environment operate. And we really insisted that when these kinds of decisions are made, it's absolutely essential to seek the involvement of the faculty, the input of the faculty, because otherwise these privatization agreements are not going to be successful.
Right. And because they're so widespread, what kind of advice would you give to chapters that are facing similar contracts now or that are hoping to start working on privatization issues on their campuses?
I think the first step is to begin a conversation on campus with members, with faculty, and see how colleagues perceive the situation. There has to be broad support within the faculty if there is going to be successful resistance to these kinds of contracts. So you have to persuade your members that the privatization really has great significance for the future of the institution. And it's not really hard to persuade people about that. So once you provide all the information, you have dialogue, discussion about it, people understand what's at stake. So that's really important. I think oftentimes management, and I don't want to point a finger just at our administration, but I think this occurs at other universities as well, that their ability to introduce these things really depends upon secrecy. And so a way to resist it is to open it all up, make it as public as possible, as transparent as possible. In addition to the different actions that I already described, we submitted multiple information requests that we have right to under our contract and under state law. And a lot of that information showed exactly how this contract came to Eastern. And that is potentially information the university would not want to be made public. So in other words, by shining a bright light on all of these kinds of agreements, it will have the effect of making administrations less likely to make these decisions without consultation. So publicity is really important. And I think getting members of the community groups involved. In our case, it was important to talk with our students about academic partnerships. Other unions on campus also became involved in our campaign. And that was very useful for getting the word out about what was happening here. And then I think the media is always a potential ally in any kind of organizing about issues on campus.
Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insight, Judy. I know there's so much more to say, but we couldn't possibly fit it all into this conversation. But hopefully this will pique chapters' interest in, or not even pique their interest, because I'm sure there are chapters that are very interested in doing this. But I hope this will give confidence and empowerment to chapters that are really frustrated by contracts like the one you're describing. And I hope that folks will go and check out the Education Not Privatization Toolkit at onefacultyoneresistance/privatization. Also, if your chapter is working on privatization issues and you would like to share your work and lift up the work of your chapter, please contact us at privatization@aaup.org. We'd love to have a conversation with you about how the AAUP can support the work of your chapter. So with that, I think we're going to sign off. Thank you so much, Judy.
Thank you, Monica. It was a pleasure.
And we will see you all soon. Have a great Friday.
Bye.